All right, awesome stuff. We looked at very okay, let's start again. Alrighty, should we jump into the app?
Let's do it.
Okay, straight away we see this. Now, obviously, I've got an account here, but I'd love to hear what you think when you see this first up.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially because I actually have an account with free trade, but we won't get into that. This is quite interesting because you got the graph quite big actually at the beginning. I forgot what the actual there's a technical word for these graphs, right? I don't know if they're not micrographs, but essentially I think they're quite cool, and you see them a lot in dribble posts, right? If you look at lots of dribble shots, you get these kind of
Yeah.
lines. And the question I worry is actually, do you get enough information from me? It's like, I guess, like, how useful are they? And so my kind of first question, maybe back to you, is, when you come here and you're looking at your home screen, do you think these charts help you?
That's a great point. I don't think the actual lines really add too much. And the reality is it's actually showing day volatility as well. Like the 0.49% for the top iShares FTSE 250 line item, for example. That's just showing you how it's changed in the last day. I'm more concerned with green or red and the percentage point that it's changed. I think the line is probably a nice visual. There could be a number of reasons they could have done it, because I can imagine that if you just had line items of these individual ETFs or stocks, the screen might get very, very busy, because you could easily fit in double the amount here. I don't know if they've done this to kind of space it out potentially to make it a little bit nicer visually, but also make it a bit more breathable in terms of how many you can see.
Yeah, because you mentioned the fact that the number is talking about day volatility, you said,
Yeah.
because one thing that I get confused about with these charts, because they have them on free trade as well, is exactly what time period you're seeing. Because I think the a number that is referred to on free trade, at least, is actually a month. And then obviously you
Right. Yeah.
drill into it. And to be honest, when I look at things, I'm probably more looking at a day or a week to get started. But obviously I'm just one particular person. But is it obvious to you, I guess, at the beginning, what that time period is for this? And can you actually change it? I'd love to know. I do question if you can actually have more emphasis on the numbers, because I have seen some, designs where you can have the numbers quite big, but it still looks quite appealing, and you can keep it quite, have, good padding and margin still. So I wonder if there could be an option to remove the graphs, because whilst it does look pretty at the beginning, I think you quickly lose that value if you're actually using this app on a regular basis.
I'd agree. It's actually quite a lot of information that they have got packed into each card. I know I called it a line item before, but it's more like a card. You've got the actual name of the product. You've got the ticker, the type, and then you've got its amount in price. Then you've got its increase or decrease in price, and then the actual percentage as well, and then the graph underneath. There's a lot that they're packing in. I do agree. I would question if there's other ways that you could do this. I mean, fundamentally, for me, as a passive investor, let's say, I wouldn't be interested in anything but the kind of percentage changes here. So it'll be very easy for me to see the amount, and then underneath is the percentage change for the last day. I think that'll be fine. If you can edit the actual time period, like you said, that will be great.
All right, we've got a redesign on our hands.
For sure. Let's go into one of these products. So these are ETFs up at the top. They're a bit more limited. So let's go into a stock, which has a bit more information, basically, that you can view.
Too stupid to understand this.
Okay, sure. Let's go with Amazon, because it's down 2%, which is quite rare.
Okay, up into Amazon. Alrighty, so here's more of the chart that I think you were talking about before. You might have seen it on free trade, but just generally of that different time period breakdown.
I like the kind of number at the top, nice and big. It's the first thing that drew my attention, apart from buy, which obviously is huge. The percentage is quite a lot smaller, actually. I'm not sure, again, if that should be so small. Again, if I'm thinking about the things that I like to know, yes, the price is good, and I might be focused on the price, but I could also equally be focused on the change. The graph looks good. I like the fact that, actually, I know this is not a free trade comparison, but free trade, I think, defaults to a month when you first come in here. I like that it's on a day. Don't know, again, if that's maybe something that's configurable to make your kind of life easier. But yeah, so I think, yeah, good initial impressions. I don't get what you mean there.
Yeah, okay, let's just ignore that. That's a bad idea.
maybe just one point that could be improved is the buttons that you've got for the expanding and market closed. The question, is it a button, or is I'm a little bit confused
Yeah,
as to like the expand looks like a button, the market close is the same style, but I don't know if that's a button, if it's more like a status. So I'm a little bit confused as
let's
to the
try
kind
it.
of component there.
So if you tap market closed, it is a button. This is
Okay.
quite nice. I actually do like the way that they've got this. They've got this visualized. Market opens in X number of days, which is quite cool. But yeah, that does not. That feels more like a filter that I would conventionally see, where you like toggle it on or off. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, the thing is, I thought it was a button, so I think they've done that correctly there visually, but the text confused me because the text made it feel like a status rather than it's something clickable. So yeah, maybe you can add an icon next to it that could, imply that it's a button, or yeah, change the text a little bit so that it could, think that it's something you click on rather than just a status.
Yeah, you've got an icon one on the left and then a text one on the right, so they're not exactly consistent either. On your point about percentages, I find it quite baffling how it feels smaller than the size it was before. If you actually look here, maybe it's the exact same size, but if I see the 2.38% here down and I tap here, I mean, I know it's the month one, let's go to the day one. That's the same size. Why is it the same size?
Oh, hell no!
Surely it should be bigger at this point. That's quite an important thing for you to see.
Yeah, I mean, you've increased the price of the stock by quite a bit. I think you probably
Yeah.
should. You could even reduce that and then give the give the extra space to the one, so you can increase them both proportionally rather than just the price point. I'm not sure why they focus solely on that.
Yeah, that jump between that big font size to the little font size is a very big difference in hierarchy. Okay, if we look at some of these other views, you can see when you try to change to another month or like another time period, generally, the actual percentage amount up at the top underneath the price changes as well. I do quite like these. I think it's nice to be able to see the trend over time. So, if you were smart and put your money in back in 2013, you'd be killing it.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get into actual investment stuff here because it's been pretty sore for me recently, being a part of the GameStop debacle. But yeah, on the actual chart, I do like the visual. It's this is a kind of dark
This is the dark theme.
theme works well. Mumsy calling to check in you're not
I
going
swear
too
I
much
put it on
money
Do
in
Not
your trading.
Disturb. Honestly, I put it on Do Not Disturb, but she's on my favorites.
But yeah, I think the colors look good on the chart, so I think that's kind of a nice. It feels almost calming, the color combination. So even if you go to the red, actually, if you go back onto the day view, the red doesn't feel on this kind of background again. Doesn't feel so like screaming to me like, oh my gosh, is things are totally terrible. Obviously I know that's wrong, but some reds can be quite strong, and also if it's like a very white background and a strong red, it can feel overwhelming. But these kind of feel a little bit calm.
I do agree. I think I don't know if you've noticed as well. I'm sure you have, but there is a light gradient underneath as well, so it doesn't fill, but it is a nice little touch there. And then yeah, you can touch on the actual graph to see the price changes as well, which I always find quite useful. Let's talk a little bit more about what's on the rest of this screen. By years.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just really enjoying.
It's important stuff. It's important stuff. But yeah, you can get into a lot of detail. Basically, I wouldn't go look into it, but it is obviously important to do your due diligence, and it lets you do that at least.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I actually like the fact they've gone into the detail on mobile because in this day and age, people are obviously on the go. Well, maybe not in Corona times, but generally people could be using their device. And one thing though on the visual side, because I think a lot of people will be wanting to improve their visual skills, and a lot of people actually will be stuck when it comes to designing for an app like this, where you've got a lot of information. So if you just scroll back up to the kind of the first bit where it has the kind of description and all the kind of other fun, interesting numbers, I think this is a good example here. They've done a couple of things that just make this not feel so daunting. And the key one here is just spacing, right? Like the amount of spacing they've got here between the margins and the padding is, I'd probably say people would think it's too big if they started doing it in their own designs and they weren't, familiar with this kind of, UI skill. People often kind of make their designs too cramped and too small. And I think one good rule of thumb is if you're not sure, just double your padding and margin, and it's probably going to be right then. The spacing here really helps make this breathe. And even though you've got a lot of what I'm going to say personally is like boring information being presented here, you don't feel like it's incredibly boring from the visual point of view. So I think that's a very kind of key point that people can pick up on when they're designing, especially for apps like this.
For sure. Let your sections breathe. I think they've done a great job here of them. I know we talked about time limits, time periods real quick. I do quite like here you've got a drop down to change the different time periods for these various different sections. I wonder if they're actually able to implement some of this, or maybe this exact style, maybe even in the first page that we saw, to quickly be able to change the time period.
Yes, no, I was going to suggest that as well, actually, on the previous screen, because having the ability, I think actually throughout the whole app, I do think people are quite different the way they're trading and the way they're investing and the style they do. And I think actually the customizability to make it your own is quite important. Like we're mentioning, what time period are we looking at as a default on the home screen? What time period should be the default when you get into the detail view for a stock? I think all of these things could hopefully be personalized, or even just have quick toggles so I can do this, like this drop down you just showed here. Why are you eating? We're recorded. We're actually in the studio. We're live in the studio and my guy's eating. Like, what? Where's the respect? Where's the respect?
Okay, we've looked at stocks. Let's head over to look at portfolio. We're not going to buy anything just right now because we don't want to promote any financial advice.
FBI, open up!
So we'll head over to the portfolio section. Okay, so as you can see, I'm doing really, really well right now. Should definitely be hired back into the investment bank in a trading capacity immediately. But DJ, what are your thoughts on the portfolio that I've got going right here and the kind of visuals?
I mean, obviously, I'm focused on this number because it's quite funny, but the return being a negative and in red, it's actually bigger, I think, than it was on the home screen and the actual detail screen, I believe. Interesting that it is bigger here. I mean, I think it should be this size here. I just think, again, making the same point, but it should be bigger on the other screens. Again, I would kind of question the relativity to the size of the portfolio. The portfolio number is really big, and again, that is an important number, but again, the sizing there. So if we kind of just scroll down and just see what's going on, I do still like, again, a lot of this visual design is very nice. It's just, everything just feels very clean. The spacing, I really like the tabs that you see, a lot of spacing between the kind of the top and the bottom, between, like, if you look at investments and the allocation, that kind of drew my eye quite quickly. If you go down to see the pie chart. Oh, actually, it's not a full. Oh, it's a half pie chart. I didn't realize that. I thought it was a full one. It's cut off. Yeah, but that's quite nice, and that interaction's quite interesting. So, what are you? You're tapping on the other ones in it. Yeah, that's quite cool.
It changes every one that you tap on. I'd question scale on this, because if you do have an investment portfolio that's quite big, then you're going to get a lot of these. But it is, again, a nice visual. I do definitely agree. I think they've got their color palette on pretty sweet, especially if you're considering you're very limited by red and green. They're gone because there'll be the up downs for the prices. But beyond that, I think they've done a pretty nice job of using this slightly different color palette for other parts of the screen. The one thing I think of when I see this top section here, from a hierarchy perspective, you're saying to me that the amount you've got on your portfolio is the most important thing, which to me, I'd say makes sense. But looking at how much you've invested in the return, I'm not so sure that is that much less important than what your portfolio value is right now. You could make the argument. Yeah. yeah, exactly. I'm just going to repeat your same point. My suggestion would be, like, you could have these three all together in a similar weighting. That would be I think quite an interesting layout if you had amount initially invested, value currently, and then your overall rate of return. That to me kind of sequentially makes sense. That is the timeline, right? You put money in, you see what it kind of grows to, hopefully, and then you can get the performance after that. But
I think there's two options that I can immediately think of, and I know we shouldn't solutionize right now because in a real design thinking process, you would take some time to digest this. But I'm going to do it anyway. And so you can have, you can have it three in a row, especially like on a phone this big. You can have the current balance, invested, and return all in one row, or maybe a slightly funkier option is to actually have two on the left and one on the right, and kind of have them vertically centered as well. So that's kind of another one. Again, you could have the cash invested and the return on the right, because that is maybe the juiciest number that you want to look at sometimes. So yeah, I think there's probably a couple of options here. They've kept it incredibly simple and similar to the other screens, which we also maybe don't agree with.
They've got this default to 1 day. I don't understand why it's defaulted to 1 day. Surely that's such a I'd almost think the app default, if you can't change it, would be more than 1 day. Like, I find it odd that it's always 1 day. 1 day. I'm always going to want to change it to something else. To be honest, that's a bit annoying.
So I mean, just coming back to the stocks, I actually like seeing the day performance of stocks, and I kind of start there and move outwards. That's probably more my style because I'm not so much a long term investing, and that could be a preference. But I think for a portfolio, I definitely think you probably want to do a little bit more long term as a default. But again, it just brings me back to my kind of thinking around this whole app is that I do like the UI, but from a UX point of view, there needs to be a little bit more kind of flexibility in terms of allowing people to set certain preferences, etc.
Don't you find it interesting how here the portfolio is a neutral blue in performance and only the return is red, whereas with the stocks, the entire graph and line was the actual color of the performance?
That is a very detailed point you've picked up on, Sakky.
I wonder why. I wonder why they do that. Maybe because it's your actual money at this point, so they don't want to add too much emotion to it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I guess right now in this scenario, it depends on the day. So in your scenario here, for the day, you're actually up, so it would be green. Yeah, it's interesting. Is this a wild thought? But I have heard a stat recently. It might have been you that shared it. That said something like the majority of retail investors actually lose money.
I think they actually have to say this at the beginning, like 75% or something of trading 212 accounts and just generally trading accounts lose money.
That's insane.
Yeah. As you can see, I'm very much not bucking the trend at all.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right to your point then. Like, if the majority of users, again, thinking about who your user base is and what their scenario would be, if the majority of users are going to have a negative return balance, then or negative kind of performance rather, then it makes sense to try and keep this graph a bit more neutral than always seeing it in red. Otherwise, people will be like, you know what, I'm done with trading 212 because I just have negative emotions when I come to it.
I've got nothing left. I've got nothing left.
Just quickly going back to the home screen, when you went back there, I just thought of a couple of questions actually at the top. When we've got here, my watch list, top left, and then you've got top winners, top losers, popular. One other big question I have around this app is, not this app, but generally trading apps, is not necessarily dark patterns, but what are they actually encouraging users to do? Because it can get a little bit messy, especially with all this, GameStop stuff that's happened, right? Is in like people kind of questioning. But yeah, this top winners and top losers, I guess from a UX point of view, good, bad. I think quick access to these things, or what are you thinking there? Okay, so I think maybe at first glance it doesn't seem that useful.
There must be no winners and losers today.
Is that
So I don't know what's going on. Let me restart.
I think you should report a bug.
Yeah. Okay, well, your things have gone now, so it's changed.
Okay,
You don't have best performing and worst performing. What would you even call these things? Sections?
Categories?
Lists? Yeah, lists. Yeah, categories. Yeah, categories.
Yes.
Let's go with categories.
Yeah. Let's agree to disagree. So the question I have, I guess, still stands. So I guess, have you used them, these kind of sections, and do you think this is a good thing?
So as a long-term investor, I probably wouldn't be super interested in the popular ones. I'll probably try and avoid those, to be perfectly honest. I would probably be interested in ETFs. I think upcoming earnings is actually quite good because that's quite timely. Like, you might want to you might think certain companies are going to miss or exceed earnings, and you might want to get in on there kind of before they start up. So I think those two interest me, but I can imagine this is very, very specific to the type of person you are and what you're looking for. But
Okay, because for me, I'm thinking it's just another form of navigation, right? Because you've got the search tab at the very bottom, which I
Hmm.
imagine is how you would find the rest of this stuff. So they've kind of given you quick access to various categories, I think, which is good. But again, my kind of question would be how are they deciding what these categories should be, and actually should be able to customize these and make.
I'll definitely agree. Okay, what we're going to look at now is something that I quite like for trading 212, and I haven't seen in too many other investment or trading apps. And
Mhm.
it's trading 212's concept of pies. You might have
Profit.
seen this in the portfolio.
You don't see profit much, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
Making money. So you saw it on portfolio. We can tap that in here, and it gives you a bit of an intro. Create or copy pies, invest
It's a fun
automatically.
illustration.
It is. It's quite nice. I really like it as a passive investor because it means that I can automate this thing quite nicely. So you might just have a few different ETFs or a few stocks that you might want to continually put money into. There's a technique called dollar cost averaging, which is quite common by years.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
And it just makes the manual work kind of disappear when you can have this. But let's have a look at this pie library. So we'll hit that, head on to the pie section. You see how here at the bottom, we're actually in the pie section, but it's two people. I don't know if that really makes sense because the portfolio looks like a pie, but the pie section looks like a profile. It's
Yeah,
odd.
interesting. I guess they've tried to translate it being like it's more of a group or a community thing because I do like the fact that actually in these pies you can see a number of people that are actually, I guess that people that are utilizing these pies.
I would have guessed that.
But yeah, it is a good point. The fact that the pie isn't actually used for the navigation.
Yeah. But you can see different types of pies that, you and me, for example, could have created. And it's actually really quite nice. It tells you, who's created it. So here, the top one's dividend experiment. It can tell you the kind of name of the pie, what individual stocks are in there, or what individual ETFs are in there, how many people are watching it, who's talked about it, and then how it's kind of split up. So I think it's really, really cool how they've got this. And I really like the community element as well. It's obviously very important for any product to kind of encourage that when it just, I think, keeps retention. Yeah, there's loads of these, and you can just see, Treba, Imran here, they've just got their own types of pies.
Just quickly, two
Okay.
things. I think from a product thinking point of view, I love this idea. I think obviously you're familiar with it, so you're keen to jump in and explore the beauty. For me, I just love the concept because it does remind me actually of was it eToro that have where you can actually just copy someone's trades. You can
Oh,
just like kind of
wow.
copy what they do, yeah, which is interesting. So I like both of the concepts there. Obviously, there's a little bit of a question around maybe not ethical, but like should we be allowing people to do this easy and what are the risks behind this? Like it would be
Yeah.
maybe nice. I don't know if you actually sign up for this pie, if there's like some kind of warning or something, because you are essentially
Yeah.
kind of putting your kind of money in the hands of something which I'm not sure how much has been, kind of well thought through. But I
Mhm.
love the idea in the concept initially. Second point on the visual side, again, I kind of love what they're doing visually. This is a great example of a card element where everything is spaced really well. You've got nice, interesting elements. They've got a blend of
Yeah.
showing information about the actual pie with the kind of icons of the companies, but having the plus like 46 more to show you there's more. And it's just a great summary of like a card. And obviously the colorful pie on the right is just is quite a cool fun to look at as well. So a great example
For
of
sure.
a UI card.
Let's have a look at one of these categories that you can see up at the top here. Let's go with EV and green energy, for example. So we've got one here. So let's have a look at Briscoe's pie. Okay. So again, to be honest, just a general point here. I think they've got some nice different elements across the app. Like there's a lot of different types of experiences, I think, in this particular app. Like you've got horizontal scroll here, for example, with the actual individual stocks in there. You've got pies. I just really like how they've used so many different types of components. And I think in kind of the right way, it doesn't feel like they've just shoved a bunch of different things in just for the sake of it. It does feel very appropriate.
Yeah, it still feels so spacious, which is again testament to the fact they've managed to pack this amount of context in, but it not feel overwhelming.
So you've got a description that they've put in here. Want to get into hydrogen? This might be a good pie for you to look at. Annual rate of return here, which is quite nice. So it tells you and how many people are viewing it. A little bit of information, basically. You can look at the pie owner as well, and you can save it. This is a feature that I really like. I think even if I don't come to copying this pie straight away, it means that I can save it for later, because something was kind of interesting out of it. And then, yeah, you can copy it yourself and then actually adapt it to kind of whatever you need here. You can see that the individual stocks have the weightings as well. So it tells you like BE, for example, is 12%, PHE is 10%. You can edit that when you kind of copy it over as well. So it's pretty neat.
I do love everything they've done here. The one criticism I'd have maybe is explaining how this pie works. And maybe I've missed this because you might have had that explained when you first, signed up to or opened the pie section. Even just how you explain the weightings that are assigned to it. Again, I think people generally would understand that, but it could be nice if there's I don't know if there's a way to kind of quickly explain this pie page. Whilst they've done a quite job at actually viewing it, concept, I think could do a little bit of explanation.
Agreed. What I do find a bit concerning is here you can deposit money with a credit card. Yeah, that's not. You're actually what? Imagine, bro. I'm familiar with ETFs and how they kind of operate with different weightings of stocks. So this is it makes a lot of sense to me. But you're right. Maybe that's just a broader point. Is when you jump onto this app, that very first onboarding experience, having education or asking you a few questions, probably quite important. I know it doesn't require you to if you just want to invest some of your cash. So on the rest of this section, we've got obviously comments, and then you can see the actual full breakdown of slices as well, in a slightly different layout to this up at the top. The comment section is really good. Obviously, you can drop one in yourself, and you can see what some other people have said in there as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of comments. Again, bringing the community aspect to this trading stuff, I think is very useful and great from a product thinking point of view. Essentially, kind of blending Reddit and trading apps, which is kind of what you want, right? Just going back, and I'm picking up on a lot of visual things, but the way they kind of collapse the comments is quite interesting. They've used it quite a few times here. The kind of having the shadow that cuts off some of the content that shows you that there is more, and then kind of a call to action. Definitely seen it in a lot of dribble shots. Rarely seen it implemented actually in practice in an app. So this is quite cool. And I think it works quite well. I think it kind of makes it quite obvious. So yeah, just it's nice to see a kind of a new pattern being implemented in it.
One thing to note is they do have a variety of different CTAs, right? Like we saw the big one for buy. We're seeing now copy pie here. We've got read all comments, which is a different type of button. It doesn't, again, I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's just, again, spacing or the kind of minimal feel at points. It doesn't feel too much. It doesn't feel like it's all asking for my attention. I think the differentiation between having a button here and then a kind of like text and then icon, fab, I think that works quite nicely. And it's not like having two CTAs on one screen. Okay, cool. We've had a look at a few different things on the app. Looks like there's a lot that you can do. DJ, what are your thoughts as like kind of closing statements on the app overall? And then let's give a rating for the UI and then for the UX as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, you did kind of rant and rave about trading 212 before we did this. We were both on free trade before, which I still am on. I can see now why you like it. I think there are definitely some good things to it. I think probably the strongest aspect for me is the visual side. I love how they've kind of distilled lots of information, but kept it in a nice, easy to digest way. These pies are super cool that we're looking at now. So yeah, so I think from visual side, I think probably I give it a 4 out of 5 actually. I would love to give it a 5, but I think it's got to be something. I'll give me something a little bit extra, some kind of magical spark, which it hasn't quite got. But I can't really fault it UI wise. The consistency is great. They have lots of clean spacing and padding, margin on point, etc. So yeah, I think probably where it could improve is the UX. Generally, again, the UX I don't think is bad. Again, still a good job. So not really much to say here. I think it's just a problem with trading. I feel that from my experience anyways, that I've seen that, even you and I are very different traders with a lot of similar interests, etc. So I think you've got quite a variety of trading styles. And I don't know if I've seen an app that actually incorporates that. And I don't think this app does do that. They've done well with the pies. I think, again, that's a great product concept. So, some points there. But again, I still think the customizability, setting some preferences, making the app their own, like personalizing it, I think would take it to the next level. Which is what you can do on those, those clunky, ugly desktop trading apps. You can really do that. So maybe just bringing that into the app, I think could take it to the next level. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn between a 3 and a 4 on the UX side. I don't know. I'm gonna let you decide the final verdict on that. Sakky, what do you think?
I think you made a good point about different types of trading strategies. I think just for the fact that you could probably be almost any type of trader here if you wanted to be, like from the in-depth level that the stock information has all the way through the auto invest with the pies. I'm going to give it a 4 because I think it caters for all different types. It may not be particularly suited, but it does, I think, attract all different types in.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
so I give it a 4.
I'm happy to disagree with you, so that's fine.
Yeah. Wouldn't be ZeroToDesign otherwise, am I right?
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. It was quite a serious one because it's a serious topic, guys. Don't throw money away. This is not gambling. Don't do what I've done and what Sakky's done actually with his excellent returns. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, drop us a like. Any questions, hit us a comment. We may do a redesign, and I'm going to put it out that we may because we actually might not. I think we've actually explored our points quite well, so we may not. But yeah, if you like what you've seen and happy to see some more, hit subscribe button, hit notification bell so you get notified when we get a new one, and we'll see you in the next video.
And none of this can be taken for financial advice. Thank you very much.